and my partner in crime, Jamie Pascal. Jamie.
What's up, man? How are you? How you guys doing? How's everybody doing? Talking another week of Flyers hockey. What are we, 11 days out now from Phase 3 training camp? Tomorrow, I think Vegas and Edmonton will be nominated for the hub cities, and here we go.
Love that. Love the excitement there, and hopefully it stays to 11 days. And I also want to introduce our guest, one of our teammates, one of our best writers, one of our more committed writers that, if you guys have not seen it lately, has a 3-piece article that just came out about the UFA, RFA situation with the Flyers. Definitely check it out. Lance Green. Lance, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Introduce yourself to our audience, please.
No problem. Thanks, guys. Hey, like you said, my name's Lance Green. I try to write as much as I can for the website. I did just have a nice 3-piece article set come out with the guides through the off season. If you haven't read them yet, go check them out. You can follow me on Twitter at LNGBASSIST39, or just follow the website here.
And definitely, yeah, you can always come back for more articles. We push them all the time, but definitely look out for Lance's name. Put out a pretty good piece. Well, we're going to go through it in this episode a little bit. But definitely he goes really in depth with a lot of stuff. He got a lot of detail, a lot of information. He's been a Flyers fan for years and years, and it shows in his writing. So absolutely check him out. So let's get down to our topics today. And I think our first topic today is, probably our most, I guess, immediate one. This is the big news that just came out. The draft lottery just happened. The world is on fire and everybody is upset, of course, just like almost every draft lottery that we have, only this time just a little more twisting the knife in the side of every team that struggles, as the number one pick is probably going to there's a good chance it's going to a playoff team. And in a year where Alex Lafreniere is the number one pick, a potential elite player coming into the NHL, it kind of rocked the world a little bit. And obviously there's talks of conspiracy and whatnot. But overall, I think maybe it was, I don't want to say an oversight, but I think they knew to some degree that this could happen. I think they just didn't imagine that it would happen so bluntly and that they would get the first overall pick. I think maybe they thought a second or a third. But I was even watching Steve Yzerman talk about it, and they asked if he was surprised. And he said, not really. He's like, because it was a better chance it would end up with an outside team. I think it was at 24%. Rather than going to the Detroit Red Wings at 18.5%. So maybe they'll be adjusting those odds in the future. I think this year maybe is a good case of that. But overall, I personally don't care. I just find it fascinating. And I think, you saw the Flyers get the second overall pick. This stuff happens, and it doesn't mean that you're going to pull your team out of the gutter with one player. We've seen that quite a bit. Ask Connor McDavid. It took quite a bit to get that team out of the ground, and not just him, and he's arguably the best player in the league. Jamie, what do you think? What do you think about the results of the newest draft lottery?
Honestly, it doesn't really affect us too much. The Flyers sit pretty well. I'm just preparing for the Stanley Cup run for the Philadelphia Flyers. But if you want me to be quite frank, I think Detroit did get screwed a bit. But in the same token, I'm sort of I don't feel bad for them by any means because they tanked. The Flyers could have beaten the Flyers, when we played them. What was it, in February? I think it was. Detroit played us pretty good. The Flyers had a tough time with Detroit, handling Detroit. And yes, we can make a argument for lack of talent or whatever. I just think that Detroit was tanking in some ways, but tanking in a different way and not making it as noticeable, say, as the 76ers, tanking, for all their years. But to me, I think Detroit did tank some games. And, we can make a case for the Flyers, maybe not so. I think the Flyers were a better team, so I think in the end that came through. But you know what? They beat the hell out of us for years. They beat the Flyers in 1997 4-0. Did anybody feel bad for the Philadelphia Flyers? No, right? So I'm not sort of going to feel too bad for Detroit because they're going to end up with a good player anyway. You could potentially have Lucas Raymond, who could arguably even much better beat than Alexis Lafreniere, wind up being. He is the next Swedish star. This dude, he's the real deal. I think Lafreniere is going to be a good player too, but one can make an argument saying that he may be better. But you know what? There's others on the board too. You got Byfield, you got Rossi to choose from. I mean, do I really feel too bad for Detroit when they're getting, a potential franchise, a franchise player? No, I don't feel too bad for that because they're going to have really good players on the board. So that's just my opinion. I understand the uproar, a little bit, and I understand the conspiracy theories that are coming out because if the Penguins lose to Montreal, the Penguins now have the opportunity to get, the first overall pick. I'm going to tell you this, right? As long as it's not anybody from the Metro, Columbus included, because I heard Columbus thinking, maybe we should lose and then try to get the first overall pick or something.
They're going to lose.
As long as it's no one from the Metro, I'm all right. It is what it is. You're just going to have to be okay with it. I mean, I don't think the NHL, if you want me to be quite frank, I don't think the NHL wanted it to happen this way. It just happened to happen this way.
I think so, too.
I don't think that they actually
It's a Murphy's Law. It's a Murphy's
exactly.
Law. What can happen will happen.
They probably wanted maybe the 4th or 5th pick, but not number 1, or maybe even the 2nd pick. It wouldn't have been as bad as first, but I'm going to be honest, I was very confused. It took me about an hour to figure out the draft lottery in general. I'm not an idiot by any means, but it was very confusing. So I think that's took me away to try to figure out what the heck was going on. Right. So I really wasn't paying attention to what actually was going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I'm the only one. I hope not. But I mean,
well, what do you think, Lance?
Well, I can see the NHL side to it a little bit, with the teams basically just finishing the trade deadline. Some of these teams went out there, spent their first round picks and all this stuff trying to acquire these star players that are going to push them over the hump to go into the playoffs. And then this happened and there's no hockey. So some teams could have been on a roll, and like we were, and we went out and got Grant and others that really helped our team. But now, the stoppage of play, the rhythm, and everybody gelling together is out the window. It's going to be like just starting the season all over again. So I think it's nice in that aspect to be able to have a chance in case some of these teams just don't come back healthy. I mean, look at Tampa Bay. Some of these guys are popping up, positive for COVID and everything now, and who knows if they're even going to get a chance to play at the start of this. So I can see that side as well. Obviously, if I was a lottery pick team, I'm going to be frustrated with it. But like Jamie just said, it's also set up that way so teams don't just tank and try to go after this first round pick, or first overall pick. So I can see both sides to it. I mean, I kind of like it just as hey, we know it was kind of a screwed up season, and, if you just get knocked out and you spend everything you had, hey, look, consolation prize.
Yeah, man. And I think that's kind of where a lot of this is. It's almost like these perfect storms of stuff that goes wrong. And I like what you said there, because we brought this up on one of the other episodes is, people wanted Chuck Fletcher to go out there and shell out, what they thought we needed in a, and I don't want to say desperation, but to kind of throw all your cards on the table. You got a great team. Let's go for it. And this is kind of an example of, like, life, why you don't bank everything on that one moment. Like, yes, it has paid off for teams. I don't want to say you should never do it. I don't think the Flyers were necessarily in that position quite yet. But overall, I mean, I think the patience kind of paid off here. And while we did go out and get players that, I mean, Derek Grant could even be part of the future here, which I think is a great addition. We didn't have to break the bank at all. So going into the draft, going into UFA, whenever the heck, that is at this point, it doesn't have to completely rock the boat. Lance, is that kind of how you see it a little bit, where, we good thing we didn't go out and spend, our first round pick on, and then some, maybe on, a veteran player that would have been gone at the end of the year anyway, or, maybe he would even get COVID and not play or something.
Right. I think I think Chuck Fletcher did amazing with what he had. Derek Grant came in like a spark plug, ran through 7 games only with us, but he put up 5 points, I believe, in that 7 games. They got him for basically nothing. They didn't have to give up a first or second round pick for this guy, and he came in and was arguably one of the best players out of any team that was picked up. I mean, he just lit it up. So yeah, I can definitely agree with your point there. It didn't have to run and give up that first round pick and give up all these star prospects that we have in our system in order to get this big name guy that we're not going to be able to retain anyway after the season.
Yeah, absolutely, Jamie. I mean, I know we've talked about this quite a bit, right? And we were pretty happy with the way the team is, and I think we both see Derek Grant as a potential guy. I mean, looking back on it, do you think that he made the appropriate amount of moves, or would you even say like, oh, maybe we didn't need to do anything in the end, considering you look at 3, and again, this is what coulda, woulda, shouldas, right? But we have 3 months off. Lance, you were talking about it's almost like a brand new season, right? We have kids who are bulked up probably theoretically over the past 3 months working out. I know they all have access to some kind of gym. You don't need to go to a gym to get big and strong. They all know they're coming back. These kids are fighting for a spot. Like, what happens with somebody like Morgan Frost? Like, you give him 3-4 months of development time on top of his skill level and where he pretty much was. Like, what happens if he comes in and all of a sudden the Black Ace turns into one of the key contributors and he's in the top 9 at the very start of the playoffs? I mean, that's something we're looking at. Do you think it was even worth going out for other players at that point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think players are going to get hurt. That's what's this pandemic. Sure. Players are going to hurt. Like Lance pointed out earlier, players are going to test positive. Like you mentioned, the Tampa Bay Lightning is a hot spot right now. Who knows if some of their players are going to be healthy enough? I've seen recoveries take a month to a month and a half for certain individuals. So, and it depends on various things. Just because they, have contracted it and it may not be as serious, they can still test positive for it, which means that they won't be allowed on the ice. So, if that's the case, then yeah, absolutely. Grant and Thompson were 2 great additions. But I will make a case. You bring up a very good point. There are some aces, I think, that could really make their way. I think German Rupsov is one of them that could benefit from a situation like this, because if his name gets called, he could show them, hey, this is the guy that you picked up. Joel Farabee could benefit from this. Why? Because he has had 5 or 6 months off now. So he's technically not the rookie anymore. This is his sophomore season, right? So in his sophomore season, I thought that he would make the top 6, if not top 9 anyway. So I could see him possibly scooping up a spot, out of, training camp. And then this benefits also Nolan Patrick as well, because it's given him extra time to get healthy, has benefited him to clear his mind mentally, because I'm sure he's mentally frustrated. And that day may have been coming to where he would have to address the media and say if he could or could not, play this season. He didn't have to answer that question, so relief was off his shoulders. He could get mentally healthy there as well, so it could benefit many of ways. But no, I think that I would still stick with Derek Grant. If we could do it all over and say we knew the pandemic was coming, I would love to have a Derek Grant. I would love to have a Nate Thompson, because the deeper teams are the teams that 9 times out of 10 hoist Lord Stanley. And one area that I think the Flyers are very deep on is goaltending. I don't think a lot of teams, much like the Carolina Hurricanes, I think they'll see their day too, or some other teams that have goaltending issues or goaltending questions. Who is their number 1 netminder, heading into this? The Flyers don't have to answer this. We already know it's Hart and Elliott, and then we have, Lyon and Ustimenko, for, to me, quality goaltenders if they were given their number. Now, I'm not saying Lyon could carry us, throughout the whole playoffs like Boucher could, or something like that. I'm not saying that Lyon could be a Boucher, but Lyon could step in for a game or two if he needed to and withstand the storm and give the Flyers a shot at winning that game. He may not do it great, he may not do it perfect, but he would at least give them a shot, to stand a fighting chance, to win that game. I'm not saying he's going to be a groundbreaker or nothing, but There's just, different. No, if no, I'm happy with Grant and Thompson. I really am.
No, I think that's
I think our defense has gotten better. I think, what Robert Haig said on Friday when he was asked the question about the quarantine, he said it sucks. I like when you hear that type of honesty to me, that means he's freaking ready to go. He was ready to go. He didn't want that damn season to end. He was just balls at the wall.
Yeah, no, I think those are really good points. I think depth wins championships, I think without a doubt. We like to say that elite players win championships, and they are definitely a humongous element of it, and you will probably never win a championship without those key cornerstone guys taking you there, right? Talk about it all the time, like you need the number one center, you need the number one defenseman, you need the number one goalie. And if you don't have that, you better have depth in stride. So you better have multiple number two defensemen. You better have multiple number two centers. Like you better be a very deep team if you do not have these elite guys. So I agree, depth totally wins.
It's going to be a very tough playoffs. The majority of teams are healthy. Pittsburgh is healthy again. So now they're a dangerous team. They weren't as healthy at the time the pandemic struck. Now they're fully healthy. So you don't know what type of team. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, I hear you. I agree.
It's not going to be an easy. Okay, yeah, it's going to be a shoo-in. No, this may be the toughest playoffs that we have personally ever witnessed because everyone is on the same page. Everyone's rusty and healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the additions of that Fletcher added. Grant was exactly what we needed. We didn't have, the Nolan Patricks of the era. He's obviously hasn't played all year, so he went out and got a third line center. We didn't have the physicality. We didn't have the fighter. If you watched what the Tampa Bay Lightning game towards the end there, when Stamkos just came into the faceoff dot and tripped Giroux, took his feet right out from under him and made him land on his face. But play wasn't even going on. Nobody stood up and made him pay for that. And that's what this team's been lacking. So what did he do? He went out and got that big tough guy that can fight a fight, which you definitely need in the playoffs. I think NAK was on a roll towards the end, and he came up and was a flash of lightning there, stepping into it. And on top of that, Mark Friedman. Mark Friedman came in for 6 games when Braun went out. I mean, I think Friedman could definitely step in and fill his shoes next year. He plays, like me and Jamie talk all the time, a mistake-free hockey in his game. And he would definitely come in this playoff series if needed and fill in flawlessly without making mistakes, without turning over the puck. He's 24 years old. He's not 21. So he doesn't have that nerves that, a kid – some of these other guys have.
And quite frankly,
I think we'd be set.
No, and quite frankly, to add to that, I'm not so sure Friedman ever did. I mean, if you just see the way he plays, he's always had this kind of tenacity and confidence. I remember from day one seeing him at Dev Camp, it was very noticeable. And I think it's a really good point about the mistake-free hockey. He has an offensive side to his game, but he doesn't necessarily rely on it to make the NHL, right? He keeps his game, even the stint that he had, keeps his game relatively simple, and he can be physical. And even though he's smaller, he's stronger than he looks. And we've seen a bunch of defensemen, even Kimmo Timonen, I like to name him, very similar type of player, right? I would say Timonen is probably a more elite version of Friedman. But again, Timonen could battle with anybody. He was only 5'11", right? Same thing with Friedman. Same type of size, tenacity, and all that. So I think that's a great point there.
It's funny. It's fun. What reminded me of Mark Friedman was Phil Myers' quotes from this past week. Some quotes that he threw out there was that he tried to do too much. He was told and told again, hey, just keep your game simple. And Phil Myers said after they returned from the Christmas break, he said he played a simple game the rest of the way. And that's one of the reasons why he thought he got really good and got better and started to learn so much of the game, is because he tried to keep his game as simple. And that's the same game that Mark Friedman plays. He plays a simple game, right? He's a smart player. He'll jump when he knows he can positively jump and, be that guy to pinch. He's not just going to go into pinch to pinch. He's going to play that mistake-free game, keep his game simple, because the game will come to him. He will dictate what happens when he's on the ice. And that's what Felipe Myers did. He dictated, like his passing was just insane.
Awesome.
Sensational passes, man. I was like, what? Another player that doesn't get enough, credit for his passing was JVR. Became that playmaker, not just the goal scorer that it was, but he became an actual playmaker by throwing these passes. I was like, wow, doing backhanded passes and stuff. I was like, damn, okay. But, so a guy like JVR could possibly have a really good playoffs. He's a good player to have in the playoffs because if you need a big goal, JVR has always been that guy, that, 30, 35 goals scorer, knows how to put the biscuit in the basket. Now this is JVR's time to shine, in my opinion. JVR is probably the guy that I'm looking for the most to have one of the biggest playoffs for the Flyers, to be honest.
They need to bounce back as well. So let's move on slightly here to kind of NHL updates. We talked about hub cities. Obviously, there was supposed to be an announcement. The announcement kind of didn't happen. It got delayed again. We don't know final yet. I think we're down to Toronto and Vegas. Though I will say, listening to Jason Martinez and Chris Therien, I thought it was very interesting that Chris Therien said that he actually heard from day one that it was going to be Toronto and Chicago. Which I find very interesting. And I don't know if Chicago is even in the mix at all at this point, but I think Vegas obviously still makes sense to me. What do you guys think? Do you think, Lance, I'll go to you first. Do you think that we're going to hear next week, or you think they're ready to make that announcement and kind of, give us what we need to know? What do you think? You think we're going to hear about that soon?
Well, I sure hope so. It needs to happen. I think it would enlighten just the Flyers fans, let alone the NHL, back to some kind of normalcy, knowing that it's that much closer to coming back. As far as places where, I think Vegas is pretty much a lock at this point. I know Jamie said something about Edmonton, but I think you'll need something more on the East Coast. Chicago, I think with all the riots and everything else going on in the world right now, I don't think Chicago's a great place to have that right now.
That's why I was surprised.
They're a little up in arms still. I think it might be better suited, right? And yeah, I think that's a little more suited to be up in Toronto. That seems to be a little calmer.
I think so too. And I think Vegas can handle any type of, I don't want to say craziness.
They have all the logistics there to handle the 700 players that are going to be there, the 700 players, the
family members,
countless number of staff, countless number of doctors, countless number, exactly. Like if they want, because this is still in talks for the bubble life in terms of, the family members and whatnot. So yeah, they could accommodate the family members if they had to. There's plenty of hotels, there. So I think that's why Vegas has always been a shoo-in, irregardless of the COVID cases there. I know COVID is pretty high there right now, but when you quarantine, it's also high where the NBA is going to in Orlando. So I mean, but if you quarantine for the 14 days, eradicate it or whatever, it shouldn't be a problem. And no one's going to be allowed to go anywhere except for that particular, hub, the bubble there. So.
And I'll say this, Jamie, and I've mentioned these before. This might be a controversial statement, but I don't believe the NHL and the media are going to be buddy during this playoff. I think you'll see probably the media coverage, and we've talked about this, probably decrease to only select trusted people, probably to be on site, and probably because of messaging as well. I suspect that if there is a COVID case, I don't know if they're going to want everybody to freak out about it and start making articles left and right. I think they're going to want everything to be very measured that they do. And again, I'm making complete speculation, but
I understand. I understand that. And, there's going to be, I only see like TSN possibly being there.
Right. Sportsnet.
In terms of the media. So that'd be the Bob McKenzie's, the
NBC.
Yeah,
NBC.
It.
Like U.S. and Canada, and that's
it. Stephen Wino will be there, or maybe that New York Post guy, Larry Brooks or something, maybe he might be there and that'd be about it.
Yeah.
In terms of our reporters, more than likely not.
Yeah.
But I will say that Bill does write for the Flyers, so Bill could be that liaison for the Flyers. The Flyers may possibly able to angle Bill in some type of way because of all the work he does.
But to my point though, Bill and the Flyers have a very good relationship,
yes, they do.
right? Just like Jay Greenberg as well. Like these people were highly trusted, who have a direct, not connection. I don't want to make it seem like Bill Meltzer's friends with GMs, or I mean, I know he has some relationships there, but again, they trust Bill, and I think this is such a sensitive topic that misinformation is a problem too. So I think that media, I don't want to say it's going to be blacked out in any sense, but it's not going to be like years past, at least for this playoffs. That's what I suspect.
Yeah, in Vegas, Edmonton put forth a heck of a proposal. But Lance is correct. Vegas and Toronto is the big talk, right now.
I think it makes sense
for being the front runners, and I'm fine with that. My only thing about Toronto is I don't know if they would be able to accommodate, which I'm sure they already tried figuring all this out, accommodate the whole bubble life there.
Especially the media.
No, because that, and people love hockey there. It's going to be tough to keep, I don't know. That's one area. I think Edmonton, it's a little more segregated in certain spots in Edmonton and whatnot that they could put that in. And their proposal was just nice, and giving the families vacations, I think, was kind of cool. So,
so that goes to our next point here, right? So we have a little note here on Carey Price, but I don't think we did just want to pick on Carey Price, but just because I think some players are saying they want more information before they can play. There's obviously some hesitation for the players, the bubble life, all of that. I think that majority of them are committed to play. Do you guys think that this will be, and Lance, I'll go to you first here. Do you think that we're going to have some players maybe refusing to play at a certain point? Or you expect people to kind of buy in as soon as the details are kind of laid out, which in fairness, they haven't been. So I don't blame anybody for asking for better detail before they get working. That's what I would do if I was an employee. I would want to know what is happening and what my plan is. So I definitely agree with them from that stance. But do you think anybody will kind of back out or maybe fight playing at a certain point?
I think that some might try, although the NHL doesn't seem to be the league to lead that in the forefront as far as somebody just throwing, a huge temper tantrum per se and putting their foot down like others. But I can't blame them either. It's scary. You don't want to bring this stuff home, but at the same time, I think most hockey players will just be happy to get back on the ice and have some sort of normalcy, just like most fans. It needs to happen just to get some normalcy back into this lifestyle that we're now been forced to deal with for the past couple months.
Yeah, I feel that. Jamie, what do you think?
I think what Carey Price is saying is correct. I think that because we don't even know the rules and protocols, right? So, right? That's what I mean. So, the players and the Players Association, they could sign off, and they did sign off on the playoff format in hopes of getting more rules and protocols set forward to vote on the final, which the MLB did, on their season and stuff, So, do they have all the rules and protocols? Do they know if they could hit or not? Do they know if you know what I mean? I'm serious. They may not have, there may be limited contact. So you may not be able to hit somebody against the boards. You may not be able to have your water bottle on top of the net or some type. I'm just saying, throwing it out. I don't know.
Well,
I'm
Carter
serious.
Hart, right?
He squirts his bottle. You may not be able to do that because of, it going into the air or whatever. I don't know. We don't know all the rules and protocols. You look at the MLB, the pitchers have to have rags on their hips now. They can't spit into the baseball. They have to use a rag to moisture or whatever they do to the baseball, you know what I mean, or something. So Carey Price wanting more information, I don't think he should be, in my opinion, I don't think he should be slandered and said, oh, well, forget you too. No, he just wants more information. He's
Absolutely.
not saying he won't play. He's just saying that he will not play until he gets further information, which I can't blame him because, I mean, like Lance said, you don't want to bring this home. 9 times out of 10, if you ask a hockey player, will they be happy about playing? Maybe not so much, but they won't tell you that they aren't. They'll just say, okay, I'm going to go play. In reality, they may not want to be there to play because of this situation that's going on, but they're playing, but Artemi Panarin is another, and he's upset about the escrow. So there's multiple things going on here. So he said that he's asking, some players to, possibly take a stand until, they get this escrow situated. And I understand where he's coming from because players. No, what I'm saying is that look at it from their angle. They see it as that they have been giving to the NHL for years, totally. Right? And I'm not saying money wise or whatever. I'm just saying, just money aside, you can only give so much before the NHL or something is going to have to give to you. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not getting into that. I'm just saying,
sure.
I understand both sides. I could understand the NHL side, and I could understand the player side too. Now the NHL, I can understand because they've taken loss and stuff, but then that goes to the owners, right? And stuff like that. So,
well, here's the one thing I want to comment. It's not so much that I disagree, because I don't disagree with any player negotiating for more money ever. That's what I would do as an employee. That's what I expect them to do as an employee. That what I didn't like about it is, like, you have organizations in a position of weakness, and it seems to me like he's trying to hop on that as like, hey, we kind of got you guys here. And I get that, and maybe that isn't a good negotiation tactic because you do have leverage here. You can kind of pull your season back, and you can talk about safety and all that, and it's viable. But, like, do we really need another element and then potentially lead into another lockout? Like, you could damage the sport going about it this way, and that's what I don't like. And he did it publicly online. I get it. It is a tool. I'm not judging him too much because I don't know what it's like to be in that position. I just don't like it from an ethical business standpoint. It's going to make things messy. They should definitely have that battle. I 100% agree.
And they are.
They will. The players will defend themselves.
But the NHL and NHLPA are getting along so well.
That's what I worry about. That's all.
No, I think it could be organized, and I think that's what now is the time to organize it. Now is the time to do the CBA. Like, I give Gary Bettman, a lot of people want to throw stuff at him. I give him a lot of credit. He's handled this pretty well, I think.
I think so too.
And I think the NHLPA has done a really good job as well at handling the way they've been talking. They put all their bygones aside and have gotten together, and look where they're at now. They're on the verge of phase 3, where if you would have asked me a year ago, could that have happened? I would have said, hell no. Not that relationship. So no, I give the NHL, the NHLPA, and the players a lot of credit. And at the end of the day, Artemi very Price will play. Fans, don't throw them under the bus. They will be there. They're just voicing their opinions right now.
That's a good point.
It's just an emotional time right now is where I'm getting.
And that's what I worry about, Jamie, is that it's more of an emotional response than it was. But it is a negotiation tactic too. Like, that's what I'm saying. There is validity, and I don't want to jump. My attitude is always a negotiation needs to be both sides playing to their strength. Like, that's why we have lockouts. And I have no problem with the players getting paid. They get paid less than other professional athletes of similar caliber. They should fight for their money. I mean, I totally get it. So I don't want to make it seem like they shouldn't do that. I'm just, I guess, more of a traditional guy that I like it done in the background. Like, talk shit to each other in the background. Don't throw it in front of fans, like, immediately when we're just trying to get a season started. I just worry about it all compiling. That's it. I do want to move on, though. Let's get away from the boring stuff. I want to talk about Lance's article because that stuff is so much more fun. Let's talk about potential future here. Yeah, I want to get past it because we're gonna end up knocking players that we don't want to knock because we honestly don't want to speak too much about their financial situations. But overall, Lance, you had an awesome 3-piece article we mentioned in the beginning, right, about the UFA, RFA situation for the Flyers. We have some names that are moving out, right? We have some contracts expiring. But for the most part, the core of this team will be intact. And we really just need to clean some stuff up. I think we have some key players that might see their way out, like Justin Braun, kind of at the end of the year. We have Brian Elliott. We're not sure if he's going to re-sign at the end, right? We have players who might not be around, for the next future, right? That's going to really travel with this team and be here with the young core that we have, which, by the way, will also need to get paid. Lance, I'll let you open this up because this is your piece. You had a bunch of good detail in there. I don't know where you want to start, but what do you think about the current status? If you had to go to a game plan into the offseason, what would be your top priorities moving into the next season and real next season, not this one?
Sure. So basically, the Flyers have about 14,325,000 roughly dollars in cap space next season. Seems like a lot, right? But we also have a ton of unrestricted free agents and restricted free agents that are going to need to be paid. So I think Justin Braun, he's 33 years old. I think he's going to be on his way out. $3.8 million made this year. He's going to have to take a pay cut if he wants to come back. We just have so many guys that we're going to need. And I mean, honestly, like I said earlier, I think Mark Friedman could come in for a fraction of what Braun did and produce similar numbers. I think Braun played amazingly this year. I think he came in and did his job that he was supposed to do. The team on a defensive looking at the defense alone, needed those veteran players. They needed Braun. They needed Niskanen to come in and kind of teach them how to be pros. But I think Braun did an excellent job of that, and I think Felipe Myers came in. He's excelled, like Jamie said. After Christmas, he became quite the player. Robert Hagg stepped up. He's twice the player that he was last year. He's definitely more confident than he was. I think Tyler Pitlick was great, but I think he's gone with the signing of Sandin. I think that Sandin offers a similar option there, that he'll be used in the same way, and he's able to park himself in front of the net and get some dirty goals, which the team needs. Nate Thompson, he's 35 years old. I think it was what he was. He's going to come in. He was going to finish this year, and then we're going to move on. It's hard to see a tough guy playing that at that level, at that age. It's been a lot of fights over the years. I see us moving on from him. Derek Grant, he's 30 years old. He made only $700,000 on the season. Amazing pickup by Fletcher, but I don't know. You don't know with Nolan Patrick coming back. Is Grant going to want to come back at this point? Morgan Frost is going to be nipping at his heels next year. He's going to be that much more experienced. Patrick may be playing. Is there going to be a place for him? Is Grant himself? Obviously, the Flyers fans are going to want him to come back and have depth, but I mean, the guy would have probably scored about 20 goals, 25 goals this year on his pace that he was on. I think he's played his way out of Philadelphia, honestly. And that's hard to say because I love the guy. He's my favorite pickup of any team at the deadline. And that brings us to Brian Elliott. Brian Elliott's 35 years old. Has an amazing relationship and has tutored the great Carter Hart along the way. But his numbers, he was great on the road, but his numbers were lacking. Coming from a lifelong goalie, he had numbers almost 3 goals against average, I think 280s or something like that, 2.8 something. And he had a near subpar 900 save percentage. So his numbers aren't the greatest. And I think bringing in an unrestricted free agent like Anton Nadobin from Dallas Stars is my guy. I think he's going to be pushed out of Dallas with the upcoming goaltenders that are in that system that'll replace him. He would bring in a Stanley Cup winning goaltender to the team, and his numbers were excellent, just off the charts for any backup, let alone beating out some starting goalies with his numbers. Sure. Now, obviously, he wasn't playing that top teams every night. He was probably playing the lesser teams and giving Bishop the shot. But that's what role he's going to be in behind Hart. You still got to bring back Felipe Myers. I think he gets a 3-year deal similar to Sanheim, which was $3.25 million. Seems a little steep, but you're getting a lot out of him. He's still very young, and I think he's going to develop into be that. Like Jamie said, I think he needs to learn, him and Sanheim, if they want to play a top 4 role together. I think they're going to have to really pump it into their heads that, look, if one of you guys jump up into the offensive rush here, one of you has to stay back and cover the defensive zone. That's important. And if they can't, then you might see a guy like Hag come up and play in that top 4 role and kind of play with either Braun if they bring him back, or Friedman with Myers on the third pairing. And Tanadovin, I think he comes back. If he comes here, I think he comes in at like 275, a little bit more obviously than Elliott. But the idea here, do you want to stay stagnant? Do you want to stay the status quo of what we already are? Or do you want to advance? Do you want to win that couple extra games, seeing how close the Metro Division was, to be a top Washington next year? And that's what I want to see. I don't want to see us just be the same. I want to see us excel. I want to see us get better. And I think that's what Fletcher is envisioning here as well. Robert Hagg's a restricted free agent that we got to sign back. I think he gets a 2-year deal, roughly $2.25 million. A little pricey, but much needed. I think he excelled a lot this year. Nolan Patrick and Lindblom are restricted free agents. Thankfully, they were injured this year, because I don't think that we would have been able to sign them both back, or the likes of somebody else, without them. And that's horrible to say.
Somebody would get traded to make
somebody
room
would have to get traded. Somebody has to get traded there.
Sure.
But I see them coming back on a 1-year prove-it deals, both of them. I want to see both of them healthy for a season. Patrick hasn't been healthy since juniors or before. Lindblom, I mean, obviously it's a freak thing. Who would have thought this young kid would get cancer? But I want to see that he's healthy. I want to see that the cancer doesn't return. I want to see that he's still be able to put up numbers like he was leading the team this year in goals at the point he found out. NAK is a restricted free agent. Now, I think he'll come back and play a 4th-line role again, and I think he excelled. He even played on the power play this year. So I think he's AV's guy. I think he likes him a lot. I could see him bringing him back for a little over $1 million, just to keep him happy in a sense. Another restricted free agent is a guy we mentioned before, is Mark Friedman. If the team decides to bring him in to save a little cap space, I think he's slotted in at like a 2-year deal worth just over $1 million. And we can't forget that we've already brought in unrestricted free agent Linus Sandin, SHL scorer. I mean, the kid's a sniper. I think he's going to be that guy that is going to have to replace Pitlick, because I think Pitlick would deserve a raise from his $1 million he made this season. But I don't think we can offer it to him. With all my numbers, if you check out the article, it'll explain it a little bit more into detail. But I'm coming up with just $125,000 left in cap space after bringing back all those guys. I don't see where we have the cap space available to bring back Justin Braun. I don't think it's in the cards. He's a very good stay-at-home defenseman, but you also have to play in mind here. We would have $2.5 million more in cap space, but we bought out Andrew McDonald and we brought out David. I can't say the name, Jamie.
Schlemka.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So those guys took some cap space up. We got away from having to pay Ratko Gudas the $1 million in retained salary, so he's off the books. That's a little bit more money we have back, but we still have these guys that we bought out. So moving forward, on top of that, even you have to look beyond those guys, and you have to keep in mind you can't bring in a big free agent like everybody wants to see on paper, because you got Carter Hart coming up in the season afterwards.
Mhm.
So who knows what that's going to be.
And then the season
Right.
after that, you got Giroux and you got
Right.
Coots. Both
Right.
of them.
Well,
Same year.
Along with Hart, you got to re-sign Travis Sanheim and Matt Niskanen if you're going to bring him back after the next season. So there's a lot of contracts that are still going to be open. I mean, Carter Hart made just $700 and some thousand this year. You're looking at an average top 10 goaltender is $5 to $6 million. That's a heck of a raise that you're going to have to save money for in the long run after next season. So it's always nice to say, oh man, we got $14 million. Well, after you sign everybody back, you don't have that much money to go out and get another Kevin Hayes type deal player bringing in, at $7 million. You got to remember that we brought back a big expensive contract with JVR. So we lost that cap space that Ron Hextall got us.
Right. It's all good. I'm going to let Jamie respond here in a second. I think there's a lot of moves going to be made over the next, let's say even beyond the season, like 24 months, right? Like the expansion and all that stuff. We're going to see some churn here. Jamie, I'll let you respond. I'll go last.
I'm not going to do too much because Lance hit the nail on the head about everything. When you look at it from a Flyers fan perspective, of course, we want to keep everybody, and I'll say we because I want to too, because I love these players. I love the team. Of course, you want to keep everybody. And Chuck Fletcher, I'm sure, does too. And I'm sure Brent Flair does too. But that's a perfect world. But unfortunately, this is a business. And in a business, what happens? People command more money, the better they do, rightfully so. So the one big talk that I see a lot around is Brian Elliott, because everyone thinks that it is a shoo-in for Brian Elliott to return. To me, it is not. And why it is not, because he just had his first healthy season in 2 years. So with that being said, in his mind, he's healthy. So would he want to just sign a 1-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers next season? I'm not so sure. He might want a 2-year deal. And there are a lot of teams in the NHL that would give him that 2-year deal. You have a lot of teams with a lot of young goaltenders. You look just in the Metropolitan Division alone. The New Jersey Devils might go after a Brian Elliott because he would be a backup to Blackwood, who he could help aid, like he helped Hart aid Blackwood now. Then you got Elvis and, Columbus. Of course, they have Korpisalo over there. But you had the New York Rangers with, Shesterkin. And then you have Henrik Lundqvist. But I don't know if he wants to leave or not. So if he leaves, they're going to need another backup goaltender for their young netminder there. So what I mean is there's a lot of mentorship. And the Carolina Hurricanes would hire anybody off the street right now if they could, right?
Does Washington move in and with Holtby being a free agent as well?
So now Washington, and that would be a cheap contract for them because they're against the limit like the Flyers. So they could afford, hey, we're not going to pay, Holtby's coming off the books. How much is he making? Like $6-7 million right now or something? So they saved $3.5 million off a goaltender by squaring it up with Brian. What I mean is I'm not saying that Brian Elliott won't return, and I don't know his overall feelings. Of course, if you ask him right now, he's going to say, yeah, I would love to return to Philly. I got a job to do. I'm focused on the playoffs right now. That's about it. But where I'm getting at is just not a shoo-in for some of these guys to just say, okay, yeah, I'm coming back. Like everyone loves Pitlick, and I do too, for good reason. That was one of the best Fletcher trades. I mean, who the hell knew Tyler Pitlick? I didn't know him from Adam. The only one who knew him was Meltzer, and Bill Meltzer said that he was going to be, a good player because he covered the Dallas Stars for years. Reef, you were on that boat too. You said that, with Bill and stuff. But where I'm getting at is that it's easier said than done. Then you have to look at the Lehigh Valley Phantoms as well, because where I want to ask Lance, Lance, do you think Alex Lyon returns? He's an unrestricted free agent. So now, you would have Ustimenko, obviously, the starting netminder for the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. What do you do down there?
I'm looking for Alex Lyon to be moved on from. Alex Lyon is a great human being, but he's had his chances at the NHL. And if you look at his numbers of the past seasons, it looks outrageous. 5 point something goals against average. I mean, granted, it's only a couple of games, but he came up and got rocked. And he does well at AHL level, but I think just the depth in the system alone, I think you still have, you want to give Ustimenko a more positive role, more starting role there. I think they bring over one of the young Russians, the other young Russian.
Fedotov.
Yes, I love.
I would
Ivan.
love to. I would love to.
He is ginormous. He is a monster.
Years. That's the only thing.
A Ben Bishop there, in the making. I think he is one of the better prospects and most underrated guys because he's playing in the KHL right now, which is arguably the second best league outside of the NHL. And you also have 4 or 5 other guys. I mean, that are in the system. So you can't block these young kids from excelling. And I think Chuck Fletcher and AV are great at that. They see that this year they saw that Ustimenko deserved to be called up. So they made a trade and allowed him to be able to come up and test himself. And I don't think they block people. I think Lyon is moved on from that standpoint. He's been here for quite a few years, and he hasn't excelled to the next level. Therefore, I think it's time to give somebody else a chance.
So I want to make my point here, and I'm kind of in between both of you. I do want to give one statement about your Lyon statement, though I do agree. Last year, his numbers, let me go through his numbers here real quick. So this year, in 3 games, he had 3.55 goals against average with a .890 save percentage, not very good. The year before that, horrendous. In, again, 2 games, 5 goals against average, and a .806 save percentage, so even worse. But then prior to that, and under Dave Hackstall, in 11 games, he had a 2.75 average, 905 save percentage, which is actually pretty decent. So while I do agree with you, he did not put it up for the past 2 years. My attitude about Alex Lyon is he another Neil Little type of guy, where Neil Little was never good enough to play in the NHL, not really, at least on a consistent basis, but he was a good AHL guy. And because they love his personality, like you're saying, Lance, that maybe he's the guy who sticks with the organization because they're like, we can play him as a backup in the AHL, and he's going to be good there. Maybe, but I also would not be surprised if he moves on. I think you bring up good points, so I don't think he's a lock either way. And I wouldn't be surprised if they move on. I would love to see Fedotov here. I think my worry with that is that he might not want to leave Russia, but I would be very interested.
It's time for 2 more years.
Yeah.
What, like 2 months ago or something?
Yeah, and he can get paid more money there. And then you see somebody like Felix Sandstrom, who's here. He's kind of a guy I think who's at risk of leaving and getting frustrated potentially. Right, so I could see him leaving. Yeah. So, and exactly, and he got beat out by Ustimenko, right? And we have other guys, Ersan, Fedotov. We have other guys who are going to come in there. Roddy Ross. We're eventually going to, they're going to start vying for some spots. And if Felix Sandstrom can't get his game up to snuff, he's going to go back to Sweden, most likely, or playing Finland.
That's what killed about not having a developmental camp this year, because we didn't get to see these, young guys, that you would normally, see. And the Flyers would normally peg, okay, wow, they really improved. Okay, they got bigger, they got stronger overall. They're with them for the week, and they dedicate themselves to them and say, okay, well, they don't have that science now to say, hey, this is what you need to work on, because, at the time the Flyers are very, very busy, and their scouts, you have to rely very heavily on your scouts at this point, more than ever. to say, okay, this guy should go here, this guy, man, he got bigger, he got really faster and stuff. And what, Lance, sorry to steal his, your Reef, but there were a few players, Nathan Noel, Curtis Gabriel, Nathan Noel is an RFA for the Phantoms.
Yeah.
Curtis Gabriel, do you guys see them re-signing maybe Gabriel or something?
Gabriel maybe, because he's a tough guy and they need that type of attitude. I think he had a bad luck last year with the injury, but I think they like him. I think they like his personality a lot. Lance, it's kind of hard to say that he won't get another chance. I don't know enough about Nathan Noel. I think if he's an RFA, there's a chance, but they also could just choose to walk away from him, and he could have just been part of a package. I do want to say one thing about the other players. I actually agree with a lot of what you said, Lance, especially with the Justin Braun thing. I don't see Braun coming back. Jamie believes he can get more money on the open market. That's probably true. To us, I think he's a $2 million guy, and that's why he's not coming back, because we're not going to pay him the money that he can get on the open market. And like you said, we have replacements. And quite frankly, we have a lot of talent to hold on to develop. And I love Braun. It's not like I see him as a guy that's gone, but I think Niskanen is going to be that guy who gets the extension. It won't be Justin Braun. Niskanen, I could see him potentially even retiring here at the way that he's playing. Maybe he won't get that $5-6 million contract, but he might get a $4.5 million for 4 years to kind of finish out his career with us till he's like 37, 38. Because he's a zero maintenance guy, and GMs love that. Go ahead, Lance. You want to say something?
Yeah, I think moving on to I think a next topic here is you can't keep everybody, like you said, with all these guys in the system and coming up. Justin Braun is that guy, and we just lost Wyatt Kovalchuk. I probably butchered his name. I'm sorry, but Kalanick. But and who else did we just lost another one in the system because we didn't sign. Yeah, exactly. We didn't sign him because we thought we could sign Wyatt. And these guys we're
David Bernhardt.
David
Bernhardt.
Right. So these guys the Flyers are in a different position than they ever been before prospect wise. Before we would have maybe one or two guys that would develop to be something. Now we have a slew of guys on the roster.
We didn't even talk about Sam Morin. We didn't even mention Sam Morin. He's working to come back, right?
Sam Morin signed until end of next season. I mean, he is that monster that could replace Nate Thompson for that big physical guy. But beyond him, after him, these guys are looking at who's up ahead of them. And with guys like Braun sitting there, taking up a spot per se, Wyatt most recently thinks he can go somewhere else, possibly, and be able to make it there sooner. Then, I mean, you look at our defense is really set with Myers and Hag and everybody, Provy and everybody
Zamula,
sitting there.
York. We haven't even mentioned those guys, and those are two elite prospects that we
Millman.
haven't.
All these
Millman,
guys,
underrated.
Guys, Millman is underrated. Right.
Ronnie is hard. Yep.
There's tons of guys in our system right now. And at some point, us as Flyer fans want to hold on to a lot because we haven't been in this position before. But I believe at some point, if we keep losing people, we need to change our focus to taking a few guys that are lesser on that list and converting them and trading them to higher end prospects from other teams that we need now. And yes, we're taking that shot, but are we going to continue to just lose guys because we don't have any place for them to go? We don't have contracts to offer them, or are we don't have contract space. We're loaded with guys. And are we going to continue to lose those guys, or could we possibly trade them away for a chance at somebody that is, more on the Morgan Frost level, more on some of these guys? Owen Tippett is one of my favorite guys from Florida. that is just sitting down in the AHL because he has nowhere to go. I think he could step in and be a third or fourth line guy on our team right now. He's an elite goal scorer at every level he's been at. You know, taking a shot at somebody like that caliber guy that is Tolvanen for Nashville, some guy like that, to get rid of some of these prospects, to free up to be able to sign, you know, this offseason, we got a whole slew of other guys that are going to be drafted. Where are they going to fit in the system?
Well, there's a good chance that some of these guys might get moved for picks as well, right? Like move them now and then stack it in a pick, and then you add a player later who you have control over, right? Like Cooper Maruti, we did that with him, right? We moved on from Cooper Maruti, got a third-round pick for him, and then added a player to the stockpile, right? So I don't necessarily disagree with that. Jamie, you want to add anything there?
So he mentions David Bernhardt. Actually, right now, since Colin walked, I actually think that Bernhardt could sign. Maybe not an ELC, maybe an ATO or something, because the Phantoms, when you're looking at their defense is definitely better this year than last year. But they have 6 returning defensemen right now. So Bernhardt, if they were to sign Bernhardt could be the 7th, or possibly sit a veteran like Begres or Proster, down there, and squeeze in Bernhardt. I think that the Phantoms are going to need another defenseman, or they could go down the route of just resigning Andy Walensky if they need to, because he's a free agent at year's end, down there. But I agree with a lot with what Lance said, and that was my thing. Like, but the Flyers were very high on Wyatt Kalynuk, and Wyatt was placed into this position because of the pandemic. I believe that the Flyers wouldn't even have had this discussion with him because he would have already been committed back to Wisconsin for his senior year, in my opinion. So he was placed in a weird situation. He had to wait weighing time against and playing time. And in his mind, I just thought of this about an hour ago. In his mind, he wanted to play this season. So if he goes, he could have played with the Phantoms. Well, he's looking that he may be able to play in the NHL possibly.
Sure.
I don't know, with the team that needs defensive help. Like, so he may go into camp, rock it, and then him possibly, even play, at the NHL level, because, there are teams that need a lot of defensive help right now. So he might be seeing it at that angle. Would that be good for his development? I don't think so, but that's just my opinion. But Lance brings up a very good point. Why not move on with these guys before they even get to the Kalynuk level that they did, where they have to talk to him for 30 days to try to resurrect his rights to see if he wants to play with the Phantoms or not? Why not trade him a year ago, for a part that they may need now, which would have been a goal scorer, to fill in for a Nolan Patrick or the Oscar Lindblom, because the Flyers were very fortunate that they had all these prospects within their system that played well for them. Whoever they called up just happened to fit in and just play well and just rocked it. Not every team can do that. When you lose a Nolan Patrick, a star third center, when you lose a Lindblom, a star top 6 player, those are 2 star. Man, that's a lot. That's a lot. I can't even. If anybody would have told me before the year began, the Flyers would have been minus Nolan Patrick the whole season and minus Oscar Lindblom half the season, and guess what? They would have finished second in the division, only 1 point away. I would have said, you guys are freaking nuts, because there would be no way in heck I would have thought that the Flyers could withstand losing those 2 quality players like that. And so that's what I mean, and that's where Lance was getting at. Why not move on? And then you have your replacement, and then you figure things out from there. Because the Flyers are at a point now, very good points. I mean, they're going to get a good pick in this year's draft. You're going to get, you could possibly get a Jakub Perreault. You could get Noel Gunler. I mean, you could get any numerous guys, Cole
Perfetti.
Connor Zary. You could get possibly a Dawson Mercer. Who knows? I mean, who knows where these teams are going to select? That's what I mean. You're going to get a good player at their pick.
From everything I've seen too, Jamie, not to cut you off, but just everything I've seen, that there are already mock drafts going around where guys who like are considered first round pick caliber are sneaking into the second and third round picks. So like I said a while ago, this draft is going to be a mess.
No, that's what I mean.
Standpoint.
That's where I'm getting at. They're going to get a very good player at their pick who may only need another year of development. Then where do you put him? And,
right. And that's kind of my point too.
Very good point. And this is why I like Lance a lot, because Lance thinks outside the box, outside of normal Flyers fans like myself. Because me, I'm just wrapped in the moment pretty much. I think ahead a little bit, but I don't think of like 2 or 3 years down the line and look at the whole big picture. Like Lance looked the whole big picture. You know, he's like, hey, you can move on from this, this, and this and get this, you know.
Well, that's kind of my point too. You're looking at, you got to think that Chuck Fletcher is coming in, taking over this team. He has a slew of great young players that Hextall brought here. But can we honestly say that we think that Fletcher's going to like every single one of them? No. And he's got his own drafts now that are coming up with guys that he selected, that his guys now like, and have nowhere to sign them. So this is going to keep happening, and I'd rather see us get something for him rather than nothing, like we just did with Wyatt walking. And that's the thing. I think, you know, he's gonna want to be able to come in and sign his own guys at some point here, and not just live off the Hextall era anymore. He wants to put his own stamp on this team, like he already has started in other areas.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that with Cam York, because you look at that Cam York pick. I don't know if Ron Hextall wouldn't have taken Cole Caulfield. Like, I thought about that quite a bit, and I think that Cole Caulfield might have been a Flyer if it was Ron Hextall. Maybe I'm completely incorrect about that. I love Cam York. I will say I'm very high on Cam York.
I don't know. Ron Hextall is always that guy who thought, selected way off.
Travis Konechny.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but
way off board.
He gave up a lot to get Konechny, though, and I just want to make that clear. We haven't even talked about Ratcliffe.
No, you're right about that. He did, and I give him.
Caulfield, Konechny, it's not that different.
No, you're right. You're right, but I don't know if Caulfield is going to be that player or not. It's hard to say. It really is hard to say. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, like, what I'm getting at is that, Hextall, drafted Jay O'Brien. Who the heck had Jay O'Brien on their board, for Hextall, I like Jay O'Brien. I'm just saying who did. And that's what I mean. That's why I'm saying that it wouldn't have been too far-fetched, because what Ron Hextall would have kept in the back of his mind is he's not going to get shafted twice at that damn expansion draft. All right.
Yeah.
He lost a guy that he didn't want to lose. Let's be honest there, because he didn't want to lose Bellemare. He liked Bellemare.
It's gonna be worse this time around. I'll tell you.
You know what I mean? No.
Oh God.
We got lucky. We're definitely losing a good player this time.
Him thinking ahead, he knew. I guarantee that Ron Hextall would have known the biggest position that people were going to go after Seattle, defense, because defense wins championships. Whether it's goaltending, whether it's defense, whatever. I firmly believe that, I mean, it's a 50-50 on what I don't know. I think he could.
Can we give Seattle a high draft pick in order to ensure they take Shane Gostisbehere?
I never do.
So we free up $4.5 million.
I will tell you right now, I do not believe Shane Gostisbehere value has dropped. I've been saying this for a while. I would not be surprised if this playoff starts and Shane Gostisbehere one of our best defensemen. Like, I really would not be surprised at all. I understand why people count him out, but talent-wise alone, there's nobody outside of Sanheim, Myers, and Provorov that touch him at this point. So that's what I see. I see a guy, again, who had a rookie season that is the best we saw since Eric Lindros. If you can do that again, and I don't think anybody's trading any picks to take any players anymore. I think that's done.
No, I think that's done.
I thought it was a joke the first time it happened. Yeah. Every team that did that, and I know you were kidding, Lance. I know that. Yeah. I totally know you were kidding with that statement. I just mean in general that, I don't think that anything like that is happening. I think if anything, we're probably going to move Ghost prior to him being taken, because he is the biggest odds of being taken in expansion drafts. I mean, he is the odd man out of the names I picked, right? Of the 4 guys I just said, and Cam York is your replacement for him, unfortunately. I don't believe his value has dropped to nothing. I think he's an easy grab for a team. They go, power play quarterback, done. You know what I mean? Like, check the box, locked up at a decent price for term. I think he's the type of guy whose risk of being taken for nothing. And that's what I worry about, losing skill for nothing on a manageable contract.
I think that, yeah, I mean, Ghost would be great on, say, Florida, his home state. They're a great offensive first base team, but he just does not fit. Yeah, he does not fit into AV's system. AV is expecting guys to play defense. And, Voracek and JVR had trouble buying into this system when AV came in, and their play had, like Goss despairs, showed that he's not going to put up with it. And Shane has still to this point has not shown AV that he is willing to change and be, get back and back check and everything. He's about scoring goals, and that's fine if that's a player he is. But I just don't think he fits into the system that we have here now.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And even let's say he even fits the system, what role is he going to play as Phil Myers gets better, as Sanheim matures? It's like you were talking about creating roadblocks. It's like we only have 2, 3 defensive positions for the power play, and then we have the penalty kill, and we have all these other. So it's a numbers game. It's a sheer numbers game. And we were talking about the draft. Like, I think Ghost is the type of guy who gets moved at the draft, to be honest with you, for a first-round pick.
I don't think. Who's to say who's moving? Nobody might get moved. Why? Because he might be hurt. I'm just saying hypothetically. Because of the pandemic,
right.
There's gonna be injuries. It's just gonna happen. I mean, these guys are coming back. They're coming back from.
I think we're talking future.
From 5 months worth of rest. You've got a 3-week training camp, followed by 1 or 2 exhibition games, and then you play your round robin tournament and then the playoffs. You know what I mean? Well, these are high intense games. Maybe not so much the exhibition games, but from the round robin on, playoffs are playoffs, man. Your balls to the wall. And with everybody being rusty, and you could only work out so much at home, before you're on ice, before you take this hit, before this and this and this and whatever. You might have a slew of injuries to where you might not be able to move on from a defenseman.
For this playoff,
serious injuries. I'm just saying, knock on wood, but there could be some serious injuries. And with the season restarting in December, January? That's only so September, October, November. You got 3 months or 2 months rather, before you come back for training camp. You may not be healthy enough to attend training camp. So, where I'm saying is that some player may not be able to be moved.
A lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas, right? We're all speculating, really. Even me with Ghost, right?
But Ghost, honestly, in my opinion, can be moved. He can be moved. I don't think that his value is where he should be traded for a bag of pucks.
I'll be honest. The way this team played. Nobody cannot be moved. There's not a single player on this team that can't be moved. JVR is the only one with a large contract, in my opinion. That's very difficult. But he can still be traded, in my opinion.
When you break down his contract, that's it right there. Now you got me going, right? Okay, so now, you brought in JVR into the equation, right?
He's done very well. There's a few things last year he was.
There's a few things that JVR brings to the table that he's going to bring. He's going to pot 25 to 30 goals every single season, okay? Every single year, you're good for 25 or 30. Now factor in his playmaking skills. He could factor in another 25 or 30 points. He's putting up Hayes numbers now, okay, for the amount of money that Hayes is making, right?
He doesn't play that role, though, right? Hayes plays the defensive role.
More of a power play guy as opposed to a penalty kill guy. So I understand there, but he's still playing some part of
5-on-5 scoring, though. We talked about that.
Where I'm getting at, you got young up-and-coming teams that are looking for goals. You got the New Jersey Devils that are starving for goals. You got the Arizona Coyotes that are starving for goals, right? You got even the New York Rangers, who was a powerhouse for offense, may even be looking to add because they can given their cap or whatever, add even more to be. The Rangers finished as the first or second best offensive team in the NHL. I don't think many people know that, but these people tore it up. I think they scored at a rate of 3.72 per game or something like that. That's how many goals. Like they tore it up somewhere around there. They were definitely in the top 5 for sure in terms of offense, in terms of goals per game. So they may even be looking to add, possibly a JVR. So like you are right. Every player can be traded, including to me, JVR. Like
Voracek's name is out there. I mean,
Sabres are looking for scoring help, to play with Eichel and stuff like that. So JVR could, possibly be moved to Buffalo.
It's 3.33, Jamie, and a power play was 22.9%, which is excellent. Their offense was very good. It was their defense that really struggled this year. 3.14 goals against, penalty kill was 77.4, but young defense took them some time. Adam Fox took over. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Ghost could be moved to Jersey. Ghost could be moved to Buffalo. Ghost could be moved, to Toronto for that matter. Who's starting for D, and he has a $4.5 million cap hit, which isn't too bad for today's day NHL for a bottom to a middle pairing defenseman. He's not at that 5 mark, but he could give you some power play help as well. A team like Toronto would definitely, who's against the cap there and may not be able to sign this. I don't know. That's why I think one's able to get the 3.84 on the market is because there's a lot of teams that
demand
need help right now.
Sure. Well, I worry with age, and even a guy like Elliott earlier, like I like Elliott, I do, and even though his numbers were down, I like his personality and everything. At 35 years old, it's going to be tough for him to get a multi-year contract, in my opinion. I think he's got 1-year contract written all over him if he wants to keep playing, and I think there's a good chance we're moving on from him, even though we do really like him. I think we're going to look for that younger guy like Khudobin, who's maybe 4 or 5 years younger, has similar upside, can play that backup role. I think honestly, between the three of us, I think we kind of accounted for all of the scenarios that could happen, and I don't know who's going to be right, but I think none of us are that far off from each other. It's like if I was GM, what would I prioritize? But I think we all recognize the problems that are in hand.
The thing is that we're realists. That's the thing. You're not throwing names out there like, yeah, okay.
Well, that's what Lance was saying. You're not going out and shopping like you think you are.
Lundqvist to back up Carter Hart, tomorrow, or something like that.
I saw that.
He's a free agent. Let's go get him. No, makes no sense.
He's gonna go be a starter wherever he goes.
I know.
He's gonna get a 6 to 8 year deal.
But that's where we're getting. Like these are real. Like this could actually happen. They could actually look at a Khudobin and say, okay,
sure. I think that was a good name that Lance threw out. I think that is the exact type of guy. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the guy. To be quite frankly with you, I mean, he brings up the name. I'm like, makes sense. Even though I think you put out 2.75 for a salary. I think that's what your article was at. That sounds about appropriate for a really good backup, which is kind of what he is, right?
You have to get better in all areas of the game. And if he provides an area that you could get better at, even though that, Hart has worked well with Elliott, who's to say he wouldn't work well with Khudobin?
He's got to be a vet. It's about time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think the only other guy out there is like Dell or something from San Jose. And truly his numbers are just about on par with with his already, so he's not getting any better. So why bring in somebody else just to have the same numbers as Elliott in a sense when you could just keep Elliott? So I think you got to look at the teams that are Boston, who have 2 guys that could be starters now. It's not the days of Patrick Waugh and Martin Brodeur playing 70 games a year anymore. That's not happening.
3, not even 2. You need 3 goalies now, I would say.
Yeah, and I think that's what they do. Hopefully, is the best way I see that they can make one move to make the team get that Metro Division title next year, away from the Caps and and the others.
I like that. I like that vision. I think that's a good place to end at this point. We're way over the 1 hour mark, but this was a really good conversation. And honestly, Lance, we're going to have you back on. I know your schedule is crazy, so it's tough to get you on to begin with. But we'll have you back on in the future. Hopefully the Flyers are playing at that time, so we can actually talk about results. Yeah, right. But again, thank you so much for joining Jamie and I. Jamie, obviously, it's always a pleasure. Lance, I'll let you sign us off here. Just tell everybody again one more time where they can follow you if you're working on anything in the future. And then we'll stand here.
Sure. Again, Flyers Nitty Gritty, guys, follow it. We are on point. We got the best stuff out right now. Everybody else is taking breaks and writing stuff about everything that's happened 20 years ago and all this other stuff. We're talking about legit stuff here. You can follow me if you want on Twitter, LNGBASSIST39. Follow me, please. I'd appreciate it. All your feedback on all my articles. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Definitely.
As always, it was fun.
Your articles were killer, dude. Killer. Absolutely killer. I love them. That's all you can say about that, man.
Jamie, anything else you want to say to our fans, Jamie, before we sign off here?
Love you all.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. So again, for our recent episode, thank you again for listening. We'll be back. We got some good stuff in the works. Reached out to Russ Cohen. We're gonna have him on the podcast pretty soon in a couple weeks. We're gonna have another player interview. We'll reveal that a little bit later. Upcoming draft pick from this year. So we're getting excited. We got more stuff coming to you. We really appreciate you guys reading. We hear the feedback. We see you guys following. More feedback, more comments. We love it. Please like, subscribe, do anything you can to help our team. It's not just Jamie and I. You can see it's a whole team of writers who have dreams of writing, professionally or want to get their voices out. That's definitely something we try to do as a group. And we're just so humbled that people even listen, and we notice that people listen. And thank you so much. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to Adam, everybody who comments on all our stuff on a regular basis. Thank you so much. And I think we can say from the whole team, we love you all, and stay gritty.